Good afternoon, Rotarians and guests. My name is Karen Kim, and I am your MC for today. We would like to acknowledge the Wurundjeri and Bunurong people of the Kulin Nation and also pay our respects to elders past, present and future, and extend that respect, not so close, Joe, to all Indigenous Australians present today. Welcome to our hybrid meeting to those online and in the room. Thanks today will be given by past President Adrian Nelson, followed by the loyal toast presented by our wonderful President, Catherine. Please ensure your glass is charged. Now, Adrian will do the reflection. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Please be seated. Picture this. Two Japanese businessmen, Kasagi Fukushima and Umakichi Yoneyama, meet in Texas in 1917. One of them, Fukushima, is already a Rotarian in Dallas. The other, Yoneyama, is a banking executive on a mission to explore economic opportunities. And what do they talk about? Business, certainly, but also something bigger, Rotary. Fast forward to 1921 and Japan's first Rotary Club is born in Tokyo, with Yoneyama as president and Fukushima as secretary. A second club was chartered in Osaka in 1923, Rotary Melbourne's sister club. And by 1925, more clubs had sprung up in Nagoya, Kobe and Kyoto. When Rotary's founder, Paul Harris, visited Japan in 1935, there were a dozen clubs. But then World War II. By 1940, political tensions forced all 48 clubs to disband. But in secret, former members kept meeting in unofficial day of the week clubs, holding on to the ideals of service and fellowship. After the war, Rotary made its comeback. Rotary Melbourne's first Rotary International president, Sir Angus Mitchell, led this mission of global reconciliation, travelling over 100,000 miles to visit clubs worldwide and reintroduce Rotary in Japan and also Germany. In 1949, Tokyo was rechartered, and by Rotary's 50th anniversary in 1955, Japan had grown to 140 clubs. Today, there are over 2,200 clubs in Japan and nearly 90,000 Rotarians, the third largest after the USA and India. After the 2011 earthquake and tsunami, Rotary Club in Japan provided emergency aid, built temporary housing and supported long-term recovery efforts. Japanese clubs today fund scholarships, provide medical equipment donations and promote sustainability. They also foster global peace through youth exchanges and reconciliation efforts. On a day when Rotary Melbourne inducts our newest Japanese Consul General as a member, we reflect that Rotary in Japan is a testament to resilience, service and the power of human connection. For good food, good fellowship and the opportunity to serve, we give thanks. Arigato.
Thank you, Adrian. If everyone could now be upstanding, please ensure your glasses are charged. A toast to Australia and Rotary International. Please be seated. We'll now take a break for lunch until 1:10. And thank you to those online. You'll go into a breakout room. Members, visitors and guests, it is my great pleasure to welcome you to our 33rd Rotary meeting of the year and our 5,070th club meeting in our 104th year. It's wonderful to see you all here today and including those online. Our guest speaker today is our very own member, Trudi Matshe, founder Her Story Circle. Trudi, as she's known, will be more formally introduced by our chair of the day, past President Reg Smith, later in the program. In the meantime, would you please join me in acknowledging her? As a club guest, we welcome Consul General Takura Fuura, Japanese Consulate in Melbourne. We'll be hearing more from Furuura-san shortly, and I'm pleased to advise he has accepted honorary membership of our club. He's accompanied by Deputy Consul General Natsuko Mijuchi. Welcome. And Executive Assistant Melissa Nemoto. Visitors to our club today are hosted by Peter Rogers, and we have Gladys Liu. Gladys was a former member of our club and did leave to move closer to her federal electorate while she was a member of the Morrison government Gladys, of course, is now a councillor in the City of Melbourne. So Gladys, welcome. I'd also like to welcome Roland Jabor, Honorary Consul of Morocco. He's hosted by Will Abdo. Thank you for joining us, Roland. And also Celeste Korovas, the CEO of Australia-Japan Business Council of Victoria, hosted by Robert Fisher. Welcome to you all. We also have a number of visitors. Patricia Stewart from the Central Cayman Islands. Wonderful that you could join us, Patricia. And we have Maria Hicks and Aviv Palti. Both of you, welcome again. It's lovely to see you. Thank you. Great to see you. Now, I'd also like to welcome Brian O'Kelly, a guest of Gertrude. Brian, welcome. And Remy Abraham. So welcome to, there we are. Welcome, Remy. So I'd now call on past President Chris Wang to come forward and introduce into membership of the club, the General Consul General of Japan. So Chris, over to you, please.
Thank you, President Catherine. With the induction of Consul General Perura-san today as an honorary member, it was felt appropriate to provide a short history of our club's relationship with Japan through our sister club, Osaka, and the Japanese Consulate. Just a little bit of background. Actually, one of our club's first activities with Japan was in 1973 when we hosted our very first Rotary exchange student for our club. Our sister club relationship started in 1996 at the suggestion of past World Rotary President Royce Abbey. And so Osaka and Melbourne became sister cities. This was felt appropriate as both of our cities, Osaka and Melbourne, became sister cities in 1978. Now, some of the key projects we've worked on together. In 2004, Osaka joined us in Cambodia with a leprosy project for the early detection and diagnosis of leprosy with a view to treatment and cure. We partnered again in 2008 and 9 to facilitate the Future Leaders Exchange program with the support of the cities of Melbourne and Osaka. The program was to exchange of 4 young professionals from each city to meet with each other in Australia and Japan. In Australia, Osaka Club joined us in the Dunedin project in remote Northern Australia, providing funding support for the installation of solar power facilities. In 2014, we started the Loak Water Project in the Philippines with Osaka as our international partner to supply 3,000 residents with clean, filtered drinking water. The Rotary Club of Osaka has travelled as a group to Osaka. The Rotary Club of Melbourne has travelled as a group to Osaka on 3 occasions. Firstly, during the Future Leaders Exchange in 2008 as part of the City of Melbourne delegation, and then again in 2017 to celebrate Osaka's 90th anniversary, and more recently in 2022 as it was Osaka's centenary year. In 2023, Osaka sent a group to attend the Melbourne International Convention under the leadership of Rotarian Shinji Iguchi. In fact, Shinji Iguchi has been the champion when it comes to sister club activities. Iguchi-san will be in Melbourne again during May and June in this year, so I hope you can all meet him and we can reconnect. Our association with the Japanese Consulate in Melbourne began in 2014 when the club realised that with such a close association with the Rotary Osaka, we should invite the Consul General for Japan to become an honorary member. The first Consul General was Miss Kiko Haneda from 2015 to 2017. The same year, we hosted a Japanese Rotary exchange student. Then from 2017 to 2021, Consul General Matsunaga-san joined us. Consul General Matsunaga-san was a very active member of the Toorak One group, and he also had a huge passion for photography. I don't know if you, but he used to take funny photos of us Rotarians and others all over the place in all different guises, so he was quite a character. From 2021 to 2025, we had the pleasure of having as Consul General in Melbourne, Consul General Shimoda-san, who was from Osaka, and in fact his brother is a member of Rotary Osaka. One of the highlights of our relationship with the consulate is the annual invitation for our current president to represent the club at the Emperor's birthday celebration at the consular residence in Toorak. As you can see, we have a very strong relationship, an active relationship between the two clubs, the two cities and the two countries, furthering our friendship and goodwill and making the world a better place. And now, Rotarians and guests, it is my pleasure to introduce to you for induction as an honorary member of the club, Consul General Furuta-san. Furuta-san has actually had three major postings before coming to Melbourne. In 2014 to 18, he was head of chancellery at the Japanese embassy in Russia, in Moscow. In 2018 to 2021, he actually was in Australia, at Canberra, in the Japanese embassy as political minister. And his latest posting before this one was in 2021-24, when he was in Ottawa as deputy head of mission for the Japanese embassy. So this is Consul General Furuta-san's second posting to Australia, with the position of Consul General of Japan in Melbourne, with responsibility for the three states of Victoria, South Australia and Tasmania. Besides Japanese and English, Consul General Furuta-san can also converse in Chinese and Russian, very useful today. Consul General Furuta-san will be known in the club as Furuta-san. President Catherine, do the induction.
Thank you, Chris. Takuru Furura, we welcome you as an honorary member of the club of Rotary Club of Melbourne. Today you enter an organisation with 1.2 million people around the world, 37,000 clubs in 221 countries. This truly embraces the internationality of Rotary. I will now ask past President Chris to present you with the lapel pin by which you'll be known and seen as a fellow Rotarian at the public at large. So Chris, could I get you to... We look forward to pursuing with you the fellowship and the great work of Rotary. So with this expectation, I offer you the right hand of friendship and welcome you to honorary membership of our club. And we're going to make Grahme sing for his supper, or his cake in this case, and just speak to us for a couple of minutes about his experience at Rotary Melbourne. So Grahme, please, over to you. You have the podium.
Good afternoon, all. This comes as a real surprise, I can assure you. I thought I was just coming along for lunch. But there's no speech prepared. All I can say is that this all started just over 40 years ago when one of my insurance colleagues phoned me up and said he'd like to come and see me one Wednesday afternoon, mid-afternoon, and he'd bring a friend with him. And they turned up, not knowing whether it's a takeover bid or what it was. He told me that they were both from Rotary Club of Melbourne and they were coming down to peruse as to whether I'd be a suitable candidate. Presumably they thought I might be. And as a result, they explained all about Rotary and then invited me to join, which I did a week or two later. I've thoroughly enjoyed my time with Melbourne Rotary, or with Rotary in all. It's been a great time. If you talk socially, which was the best time, was really when we had those fireside meetings. we had a group at Doncaster Templestowe, and it was a wonderful group. We had a lot of friends. We all made mates, but then it went by the side. I've thoroughly enjoyed my time, as I say. I've served on 2 boards, one on my own volition, and the other I fell in for a casual vacancy when someone, very shortly after being elected, found that business pressures meant that they couldn't continue. So I filled in for that. And they were great times, so they really were. I have sat on quite a number of committees. For my sins, I looked after trying to gather Melbourne Rotarians to go and visit other local Rotary clubs. And boy, oh boy, that was hard work. You fellas don't like travelling, I can tell you. But I did that for a few years. And the committee works was good. I suppose the real surprise, well, I'm getting a new computer. Would you believe at my age? I don't believe it either. But in doing so, I come across a letter that was written 30 years ago by President Beazley. And he was extremely complimentary in the things that he wrote. I still don't believe them really, but it was a great time for those 30 years. My next 10 years have been pretty ordinary. Almost immediately after that 30 years, my wife developed Alzheimer's. For the next 3 years, we stopped together at home. Then off to aged care. That took 5 years for the 2 of them. And I went and visited her 6 days a week for 5 years. It wasn't good. It was hard. And her anniversary was only 5 years last Monday. So time goes by, but since then, my health up till 30 years was perfect. I'd always turning up at Rotary, hardly ever missed. But gee whiz, the wheels fell off after that. On one leg, I've had 2 knee replacements. And that wasn't much fun, I can tell you, and it still isn't. But it's all been good. I was a good attendee at Rotary, and I participated in it as much as I could. Through pressure of business, I declined to become the secretary 1 year, and I think that was a good decision on my behalf. I don't think there's much more I can tell you about my doings. I never kept any notes of what I did or where I attended or anything like that. But I did do a lot of making up. In one of my jobs, I had a lot of aeroplane travel, and that almost invariably happened on a Wednesday when you fly interstate. And I used to make up at, I think it was Melbourne Central, that's their name. They used to meet at the RICB club in Queen Street, and my office was in Queen Street, so I could turn up there on Monday mornings at 8 o'clock and get back into my own office by 9 o'clock. So that was good. I almost became a member of there. Melbourne Rotary has been fantastic. I think it's a wonderful club. It's done a lot of good work, and I've seen them do a lot of good things over the years, and I've seen some of the individuals whose commitment was tremendous. That's about all I have to say. Thank you for the best wishes, and keep on Melbourne Rotary.
Thank you, Grahme. Next week, Vice President Mary Barry will be stepping in for me while I fulfil some of my military duties. However, now it is time to draw the raffle. All right, I'd now invite our chairperson of the day to introduce Gertrude. Over to you, please, Reg.
Well, thank you, Catherine. I'm delighted to be introducing Gertrude, that's Trudi Matshe, one of our newest members who is already making an impact around the club, volunteering with Second Bite and Rotary Safe Families. Trudi is a true global citizen, having lived and worked in 7 countries around the globe. She's a skilled speaker, having told her story several times on TED and elsewhere. Today, Trudi is going to show us the impact of the Her Story Circle organisation, for which she is the founder and global curator, and is having a profound impact on empowering women globally. Time is tight today, so without further ado, Trudi, would you please join us on the podium and tell us your story? Thanks, Trudi.
Good afternoon. In my native language, I would say to you, Masikati Masquerasei, which literally translated means good afternoon, how has been your day? My full name is Gertrude Ruadzano Munyaradzi Matshe. Did not want to challenge Reg with all my names, but I have had a fantastic and fascinating life, having been born in Zimbabwe and had the privilege of living in 7 countries. As I'm speaking, I want you to imagine for a moment if we could solve the world's problems like our blood heals wounds. I also want to share with you an African philosophy that is very close to my heart called Ubuntu. Ubuntu articulates the spiritual foundation of most African societies. It emphasizes a radical connection to others as a way to solve the world's problems. In 2017, I collapsed of congestive heart failure in a rice field in Bali, Indonesia. I remember getting my angiogram and watching the dye rushing into my heart. And I started having a conversation with my heart, and I said, why are you doing this to me? And my heart answered back ever so gently. And it said to me, Gertrude, you have done this to me. I pump oxygen and nutrients into every cell of your body to keep you alive, but you have forgotten to take care of me. So how does this relate to an African philosophy? I was blessed and born to 2 amazing human beings. These are my parents. This photograph was taken in 2018, 10 days before I lost my amazing father from a sudden heart attack. I then lost my mom in 2020. So they died a few years apart. But these 2 human beings instilled in me a gift to give. They were not wealthy, but they used to take care of the community. My dad got a scholarship in 1967 to go to study in London, took his young wife with him. He became a chartered accountant. My mother became a nurse. They owned 10 acres of land where they grew vegetables and fruit. I grew up eating everything from our garden, but they would always give to the community around us, water, vegetables, food. So that became a part of my being and a part of how I live. I want to introduce you to my family. This is my oldest son, Simbarashe. Simba is now 36. He is a professional actor, took part in a lot of big budget films in New Zealand, and now here in Australia, he's now moving to Sydney to work on the Book of Mormons, a New York Broadway show. My second child is Zianda. She made me a proud grandmother, and she is the reason why I'm in Australia with my little grandson, Matida, who is turning 4 years old this year. My younger son, Dumisani, is my little Jimi Hendrix reincarnate. He taught himself the electric guitar at the age of 6 and is an amazing musician. He's now working as a consultant in business and marketing. And this is my amazing family who, after I got stuck in Melbourne, all moved to Melbourne as well, including the ex-husband, and my amazing son-in-law, David Caddy, who is from Castlemaine. And the love of my life at the moment is my little grandson. Matilda came into this life to save my life. Since he was born, I lost 20 kgs in recovering from heart failure. I live to dance at his wedding someday when I am 90 years old, and I absolutely adore this little boy. So let me tell you quickly a bit about my story and how I became a Rotarian and what Rotary means to me. So I moved to New Zealand in 2001. And at that time, I had 3 little children. I got to New Zealand with $500. I had a 2-year-old baby on my back, a 12-year-old and a 10-year-old in either arm. And I was told not to pack a lot of clothes, otherwise I would be sent back. New Zealand, Canada were the only countries left that would allow us to travel without a visa. So I packed a carry-on bag. I had $500, and I moved to the other side of the world. I was blessed to have a background in IT. So within 2 weeks, I got a job as a systems analyst, put my kids in school. My husband came to join me. He could not get work in New Zealand. It took him a year to be accredited as a doctor. So he came to Dumaji. It's interesting you mentioned Dumaji earlier. And when he got to Dumaji 20 years ago, there wasn't even a road to the village where he was posted. They had to fly him in. So I stayed in New Zealand for a year with 3 little children under 12 by myself, and I was losing it. So I decided to go back to my first gift, which was fabric painting. And I started painting meters and meters of material. The fabric wouldn't sell. Then one day I had a dream. And in this dream, my grandmother said to me, Gertrude, if you have a problem, break it up into small pieces. At 2 a.m. in the morning, the dream made no sense. When I woke up, it was perfect. And I got my scissors and I cut my fabric into small pieces. And I created my first business in New Zealand where I sold these hand-painted cushions. My children could walk home from school. I had a loft upstairs with a bed and a desk where they could do their homework or sleep while I was working. But I made no money in this shop because most Kiwis did not like my colors. They would ask me to paint blue and white. As you can see, my window is filled with blue and white cushions, and it killed my creativity. But after a year of sitting in this shop, I hit on my first $1 million idea. And that was to create a recruiting agency called Medical Recruiters of New Zealand. After I learned how to register doctors and get my husband work, I started recruiting doctors from all over the world to come to New Zealand and Australia. I ran this company for 18 years and started my philanthropic journey. Christmas 2004, Oprah went to South Africa. My parents had come to New Zealand for the first time. I was having Christmas lunch with friends, and someone said to me, Gertrude, switch on the TV, Oprah's in South Africa. And she stood in this soccer field with 50,000 HIV orphans. And I asked my mom, how many orphan children do we have in our family? By the time I had moved to New Zealand, I had buried 19 of my first cousins. My grandmother had 34 grandchildren. I buried 19 before I left Zimbabwe in 2001. We counted 49 children on my side of the family. I called my mother-in-law. There was another 40 on my ex-husband's side. And I thought, what could I do about this? I started looking at the statistics. Zimbabwe at that time had 1.1 million orphaned children. Our population was 14 million. The life expectancy of a Zimbabwean female was 21. I had turned 31 that year. So I have lived way past my die-by date. And I am grateful. I published my first book. It's called Born on the Continent, Ubuntu. Ubuntu, as I explained, is an African philosophy that says a person is only a person through other people. So I could not be human unless you were acknowledging my humanity and vice versa. In trying to sell this self-published book, I hit on a lot of closed doors. Then one day somebody said to me, there is a club called Rotary. They meet every week, they need a guest speaker. Maybe you could sell the book through Rotary. So I signed up to every single Rotary club in New Zealand. In that first year, I had visited 56 Rotary clubs. And my mission was to sell 100 copies of my book every single month, and I would hit that target and send $3,500 back to Africa to pay for school fees, to pay for food, to pay for medication. I had no idea that my giving would change my life, because I then created a foundation called Africa Thrive, and in the last 22 years, I have been able to educate 25,000 children from the community where I come from. I then got involved in the making of films like King Kong and Avatar when Peter Jackson was filming, and when James Cameron came and they were looking for African extras. And because I was volunteering for the refugee service, I was teaching other African immigrants to find work, to speak English. I knew a lot of African people, and I saw a business opportunity in that. And I decided I would go back to my acting profession. I got cast in the movie King Kong and in Avatar, got to act in both movies, but I got to create the largest database that recruited people of African descent for film and advertising in New Zealand. This is my little school in Zimbabwe. 2007, we had a drought, we had torrential rains, there was no food. And I watched as the children came to school, when they sat down in class, within 10 minutes, they would all fall asleep. And I said to the principal, what's going on? The kids have no energy. He said to me, Gertrude, most kids are eating 2 or 3 times a week if they are lucky. They're just hungry. So I started a feeding program. This is my youngest son. He was 9 years old at the time. These are children of his age group. He was standing head and shoulders taller than his peers because most of our children are stunted due to malnutrition. When this feeding program started, all the villagers started sending the under 5-year-olds to the school for food. They were running out of food. The principal called me and said, Gertrude, what do I do? I said, let's start a preschool. So I had the first preschool in my village, and the reward was my kids got a meal every day and they got an education. And now I get emails from some of these kids through social media. They're adults, they've got an education, and it changed their lives. So when I was recovering from heart failure, I decided to share my story because I had lost everything I worked for 25 years through my divorce. I lost my home, I lost my property investing business. I was living in my car in 2015. And I put a post on Facebook and I said, how many women find themselves broken emotionally, spiritually, financially, and having to start life all over again? This is my story. What amazed me is that in 48 hours, 2,500 women responded in 15 countries, saying the same thing happened to me. I ended up with breast cancer. I had heart failure. And it was a common thread of questions. In Africa, we believe that the minute you tell your story to someone else, your problem is halved. Your healing comes in sharing your story. So I created a speaking platform. I had my first 100 speakers in Las Vegas, and every woman had to bring 10 friends. I had 1,000 women at my first event in Las Vegas. Second event was in Wellington, third was in Sydney. Just before COVID, I went out to Norway, London. I was in New York when the COVID alarms happened, and I had to come back to New Zealand in a hurry. However, a miracle happened during COVID because I put this platform online, and we scaled to 50,000 women in 18 months. We were pushing positive, inspiring stories during the pandemic. We are now a community of 180,000 women in 45 countries. And what I do with the proceeds of this business, we curate the stories into books, into magazines. We have a podcast, and we have a program where we help women get out of poverty by teaching them how to sew, how to fabric paint, how to make jewelry. So everything I'm wearing has been made by a woman in a third world country. I have 200 projects right across the African continent, from South Africa to Rwanda. I have projects here in Southeast Asia, in Malaysia and Bali. I have projects in the Caribbean as well. This is our magazine, and this is the brand that is being launched this year to bring in fashion that has a social responsibility. Each of these dresses, when you buy a dress is gifted to another woman in need. I then won the New Zealand Australia Women in Technology Awards for an application that sells this product online. So we're looking for angel investors to build the platform so that women can upload the images of the goods that they make, and we help them sell. And the beautiful coincidence about your being here today is that my story has spread all over the world. Last week, I gave a presentation to a group of Japanese students who came to Melbourne, who found me online, who were studying social anthropology, and they were studying Ubuntu. And I'm now having my book translated into Japanese. I'm doing a book tour throughout Japan next year. So thank you so much for meeting you. Arigato. It's an absolute honor to be able to share this story with all of you today, so you get a little bit of an essence of who I am and the game that I'm playing in this life. Thank you.
Thanks enormously, Trudi. A very moving address, and I think there are probably dozens of questions. We've got time for one or two, and I'm wondering if anyone would like to start the ball rolling. Aviv.
Thanks, Rich. Very inspirational presentation, and thank you for being so raw with your emotions and taking us on your journey. My question is, when you hit rock bottom, and you've hit rock bottom several times, what is it that makes you get out of bed in the morning and say, I'm going to give it another go? What is it that in your psychology you say to yourself, I'm not done, that keeps you coming back?
My grandmother used to say that so long as you're 6 feet above the ground, the job's not done. So when I hit rock bottom, I get excited because I know the only way from there is up. And it's helped me reinvent myself several times in this life. Thank you for asking that.
Clearly, as a mother, your children must find you inspirational, as probably many of us do here. So how has this journey made them better people?
My kids are 3 amazing human beings. They have traveled with me. I would pull them out of school, and I believe that they learned more by being with me, seeing what the world is really like, than being on a bench in a classroom. So both my boys have done exceedingly well in their own capacity. My oldest son is working with me on a project right now here in Australia. We're rebuilding my casting agency to teach children of African descent, especially young Black boys who are filling up the prison systems. And we're teaching these kids to tap into their gifts. If they're good with dancing, with singing, with acting, with soccer, with basketball, so we can get them off the streets so that they can do better. My daughter is trained as a soprano and an actress as well. So we come from a very creative family, and all of my kids are a part of my work.
Okay, thank you, Trudi. I wish we had more time, but I'm sure you were hanging around for a while. So anyone who has questions or comments, please seek Trudi out. It's my pleasure to make you a member of a very exclusive club, actually. It's the recipients of the Rotary Socks, which is our token reward for being a speaker at our meeting. And on behalf of everyone, though, Trudi, thank you at very short notice for giving us a phenomenal address today. And please join me, everyone, in applauding again. Okay, thanks, everyone. And can I just extend those thanks to all of our visitors today. It's been an absolute joy to have you here with us, and I hope you'll find this a memorable meeting. Welcome again to our newest member, Furuya-san. Marvellous to have you here, sir. And thanks also to MC Karen Kim, for the reflection, Adrian Nelson, and of course to our lunch setup team who every week labour for us to make this event happen. If you can stay back for a few minutes, you'll be most welcome to help us pack down. And a reminder, next week we meet here at number 35 again for lunch, and our guest speaker will be Nikki Blanche, co-founder of Meals with Impact. The topic is Meals with Impact, Positive Change. We hope you can join us. Please think carefully and come if you can.